Well, first of all, thank you for coming. I realize that there are a lot of good choices at this hour of the afternoon and that you've chosen us, so we do appreciate that. My name is Glenn Odenbrett, and I wear two hats. I am the director of two projects that integrate stewardship and restoration of the Great Lakes ecosystem into the undergraduate curricula of colleges and universities. My first hat is with the Western Reserve Resource Conservation and Development Council, which has a project called CLEAN, and I'm not going to talk in depth about that project because you have a description of it in the handout that we left on your chair. It is the Collaborative Learning for Environmental Action Network, which became the seed for a Great Lakes-wide program called GLSEN, the Great Lakes Innovative Stewardship Through Education Network. And both of those programs are represented here today by some undergraduate students who are going to be talking about the role that they play, the leadership role that they play in leading their peers in Great Lakes restoration and stewardship work. For purposes of gender equity, I need to make a statement that there are outstanding men in this program as well, and one of them is actually in the back taping the session. Thank you, Dakota. But what we tried to do with this session was make sure that all the Great Lakes were represented. And so as we sort of put together the lakes and the outstanding leaders, this is the great group that we came up with. All right. So who are we? I've already introduced myself. Our panelists, and if you could just raise your hand when I mention your name, and then we'll proceed with the session. There's Janet Cram from Ivy Tech Community College in Indiana, representing the Lake Michigan watershed. Elena Dorobik from Case Western Reserve University here in Cleveland, representing the Lake Erie watershed. Sarah Kitson, also from Northeast Ohio at Kent State, representing Lake Erie. Angelina Koosman from Northland College, way up on Lake Superior in Wisconsin. Lisa Kratzer from the Rochester Institute of Technology in New York, representing Lake Ontario. And last but not least, as you see, we went alphabetically, Hannah Voss from Saginaw Valley State University, representing Michigan and Lake Huron. So to sort of set the stage for the panelists, we want to make sure that you understand the model of undergraduate engagement that we're talking about, because there is service learning, there is linking students to classes. There's also internships, which generally involves single students doing work for individual organizations on single projects. That's not the model that we're talking about today. We are going to be talking about service learning, but in a special kind of way that involves student leadership, which all of these wonderful young women represent. So to sort of lay out the background here, the vision for both GLSEN and CLEAN, as I mentioned a little earlier, is to integrate stewardship-focused civic engagement into the undergraduate coursework of colleges and universities throughout the Great Lakes. It is aligned with a national program that is funded by the National Science Foundation called SENSOR, which also has a very long name, but basically it's about linking civic engagement and responsibilities. It is a program that is sponsored by the National Center for Science and Civic Engagement, which also is under which GLSEN is managed. And the key to SENSOR is that it encourages students to learn science through that linkage by engaging them, getting engaged with capacious and potentially unsolved public issues. So what better capacious and unsolved public issue than how best to restore the Great Lakes ecosystem? Here are the goals of both programs. We want our students to understand their science, technology, engineering, and mathematics better because they're applying those disciplines to solving real problems in the real world through service learning and community-based research. And we define community-based research as the kind of research which is driven by the questions that community organizations want answered, and governmental organizations. We want to prepare students better to have the knowledge, ability, and skills, sometimes KAS, KSA, depending on who you speak to, in the real world outside the campus, to prepare them for green professional opportunities likely to result from federal initiatives like the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative. but also, even if they do not plan to pursue a career in the STEM discipline, to have the basic scientific knowledge requisite for engaging in intelligent and informed decision-making in the civic world, in their public lives after graduation. The initiative is organized Great Lakes-wide into what we call collaborative clusters. The first one was here in Northeast Ohio under CLEAN, and then we kind of went viral throughout the Great Lakes. So what is a collaborative cluster? Basically, it is a kind of a local consortium or collaborative of 2- and 4-year institutions, and we like to look at this as an opportunity for 2-year students, and Jana, maybe this is something that you can address, to kind of cross over to 4-year students working on similar projects hand in hand. Our original idea was to have the projects linked to resource conservation and development councils, and that is still the case in Northeast Ohio. Unfortunately, in the budget compromise in April of 2011, most of the full-time coordinators of RC&Ds throughout the country were eliminated. So while it is working here in Northeast Ohio still, it is not working that way everywhere, but that was our original intent. And then the key to the community-based work of the students and the faculty is the linkage to non-governmental and nonprofit organizations. And we focused on Great Lakes areas of concern for the most part. So here are where our clusters are organized. And normally a campus would serve as the fiscal agent, but we insisted that we would only make one grant to any one of these areas, and that the application for that grant had to contain in it a strategy for collaboration, which there are some people here in the audience who will be able to comment on later if they wish. So that brings us to the wonderful people we have here sitting before you today, the GLSEN Stewardship Liaisons, and you will notice that we're not using the word interns, we're using the word liaisons, because there is a big difference between what a typical individual intern in a community-based organization or a governmental organization might be doing, and what these women, in this case, have taken on, right, as a major responsibility. So who are they? Well, typically they're advanced undergraduates. And what we do with them is ask them to make a commitment for at least a year during which they serve full-time with a community-based organization. They're basically embedded with that organization during the summer so that during the academic year they can work with the faculty and the community partner to lead their peers from their academic institutions and others in their cluster in service learning components of academic coursework that benefit the community organizations where they were serving during the summer. They are engaged in curriculum development with faculty and the community partner, support the logistics of the service learning component. One of the key reasons why service learning relationships break down is something simple as there's no bus to take people from the campus to the community-based organization to do the work. They advocate for the community partner on the campus and provide peer leadership as well. They also participate, and this is something that we're building now, a liaison-wide network throughout the Great Lakes. So if you already have a bachelor's degree, as most of you do, I'm sure, and you think about when you graduated from undergraduate school, ask yourself, when you graduated, did you have a network of your peers in 8 states who had a very similar experience to yours, and who you would be able to then move forward in your career with? And that's sort of our long-term goal. So now, getting to the specifics, I'm going to turn the podium over to Elena Dorobic for a number of reasons. Number one, she's sort of our senior undergraduate stewardship liaison. She started doing this work transitioning from freshman year to sophomore year, right, at Case Western Reserve University. And she also has some more details to provide about this model. So, Elena?
Hi. Yeah, so as Glenn was saying, I'm Elena Dorbeck. I'm a senior at Case Western Reserve, and I started when the project was first beginning, and I was a freshman at the time when I was hired on. So I've seen it from its beginning, and I'm now a senior and have passed it on to other students and not formally involved anymore, but it still plays a really big role in my life and the decisions I hope to make in the future. So I am going to present, I'm going to use my time to hopefully reflect the model of how we use stewardship liaisons, because I'm sure what you're interested in is how you guys can have these kinds of projects within your organization or at your university. So the process of using a stewardship liaison first starts with embedding that liaison, that undergraduate student, into the organization. And this is done during the summer. And I worked with Cleveland Metro Parks, and I was their assistant hydrologist, so to speak, technician. And I worked closely with the staff to get to know the organization and was assigned duties and was responsible as an employee in this organization. And the next step is, after learning about the organization, is integrating what I learned as an employee of the organization into my university. And that not only includes the type of projects that students can get involved with at my university, but also understanding where the organization needs extra eyes and extra minds to solve environmental problems. And the products of these are service learning projects that are engaging undergraduate students so that they can learn about ecological concepts, but how those apply to their local community. So then a year and a half ago, I wanted to make this figure that represented not necessarily the linear process of how these projects are made, but the mechanism behind how they are successful and how they work. And for me, it was the stewardship liaison is at the center of these projects and at the center of communicating with all these organizations. So the communication is multi-directional and ends up being full circle. So everyone is working together and on the same page. So as you can see here, the stewardship liaison is in the center, and that brings together the community partner, the faculty at the university, and the students. So it was specifically done at Case Western in the first year, because now we're on our third year of implementing this project, was in the fall. We had an aquatic biology lab and an ecology lab working together to analyze and look at the plant community structure at a wetland complex in Cleveland. But then following in the fall, with some of the hydrology data that I had managed and collected, we had a quantitative biology course, do some modeling using a statistical package to relate the hydrology to the plant community and look at how we might best manage this ecosystem. But I think what is important by looking at these projects is seeing that our community organization has continued these projects and has integrated Case Western and these classes and students and their management decisions to continue the projects and move forward. So with that, I'll end and let the next student talk.
All right, go ahead and click.
And it's Sarah Kitson from Kent State University.
All right, like she said, I'm working with Kent State University. I helped organize a service learning class, and it was specifically designed to be a service learning class called Service Learning in Environmental Biology, a riparian habitat restoration methods class. I worked with the Morgan Preserve with the Portage Park District. Morgan Preserve was first owned by the Western Reserve Land Conservancy, and it has a conservation easement on it, and then it was turned over to the Portage Park District. The park had a channelized stream because it used to be farmed, and it needed to be restored. So part of this class had the students develop planting and management plans for the wetland restoration at the Morgan Preserve. They looked at trees, shrubs, herbaceous plants, basically the whole spectrum. Their reports included what kind of species of plant, the abundance, where they're going to be planted, the overall cost, plans for future management. And then after they were done writing up these reports, they presented the plans to the Portage Park District and to Davie Resource Group. They first presented these plans to the professors and the faculty, who gave them feedback so they would know how to alter the plans and make it really represent what they wanted to tell these local organizations. After they presented these plans and had them okayed, we actually went out, the whole class did, and we planted over 2,000 trees at this wetland restoration site. So the students got a lot of hands-on experience both in the planning stages and carrying out the planting, and the local organizations got management plans that they'll be able to use into the future to maintain the site that the students also helped plant. And then the next student is Angelina.
All right, like she said, I'm Angelina Koosman. I am from Northland College. We worked in partnership with the Bad River Watershed Association to establish a baseline water quality report on a watershed in the Lake Superior Basin. And our class was called the Chemistry of Natural Waters. It was a month-long field intense course, and we studied 7 tributaries in the Marengo River watershed, shown here. And I worked with another stewardship liaison 3 years ago now, and Sharon Anthony. Throughout the summer months, we continued to biweekly sample the 7 tributaries along County C here. And I guess what the students learned better from the service learning project was better teamwork skills and communication skills, and the importance of conducting the various water quality tests. We did a lot of hands-on field and lab work. It exposed the students to the general public, like when they were confronted like with questions and such, and they also developed skills related to water quality parameters such as dissolved oxygen, phosphates, nitrates, stuff like that. And continuing our work, they continued the class through the 2011 and 2012 school year, again in partnership with the Bad River Watershed. And they tested streams in northern Wisconsin, just about 30 miles south of the college in Mellon there, where they proposed the Pinoki Range iron mine. They wanted to establish a baseline water quality report on tributaries that would be directly affected by the open pit mine there. And that's just another picture of the mine and the test sites that they're currently working on. And the next student is Jana Cram.
As she said, I'm Jana Cram from Ivy Tech Community College in Northwest Indiana. And I'm a part of the Calumet cluster that also includes Indiana University Northwest and Valparaiso University. And we have our community partners are Save the Dunes, Shirley Hines Land Trust, NERMI, and the National Park Service at the Indiana Dunes National Lakeshore. And I've spent the last 2 summers working with both the Shirley Hines Land Trust and the National Park Service. And our cluster works a little differently in that who you work for, your community partner during the summer, may not be your community partner during your school year, or may not be the community partner at your school. You may work with another institution within your cluster. So at Ivy Tech, we partner our introduction to chemistry class with Save the Dunes, a nonprofit group, and we monitor the water quality at local sites within the watershed. So once a week for the entire semester, the students go out and collect water samples at one of the sites that Save the Dunes has determined is necessary to monitor. During the summer, there's actually 11 sites that get sampled. At Ivy Tech, we just do the one that's just actually down the road. It's about 5 minutes from school. There are other sites sampled by Valparaiso University students and also at Indiana University Northwest. So the stewardship liaison will accompany students out to the site, teach them how to do proper field methods, teach them how to use the equipment like the sonde and the hydrolab and the flow meter. And this frees up your professor from having to take students out every week, and that way they can incorporate these service learning projects within their curriculum that they have to comply with at the institution, that they can keep doing the labs that are required in their text, and the liaisons can help run these courses, and it frees up their time. Also, it alleviates the community partner from having to send people out to monitor these sites when they have the students doing it throughout the summer and then again throughout the school year. And what I think is really interesting, particularly being from a two-year institution, is that most of these students are returning to education after many years away. They haven't been in a lab science in a very long time, and they are often fearful. I was fearful of coming into a chemistry. I was a student in a GLSEN class before I became a liaison, but they're fearful of being in a class that they haven't been in for a very long time, or they're begrudgingly taking a prerequisite. And these kinds of courses get them hands-on and involved in the science and in their community. They're taking people out of the lab and into the field, and we're engaging students who may otherwise not be involved in environmental science. It's the moment that you can open a dialogue with them about watersheds and runoff and pollution, and they may not encounter this anywhere else in their education if they're pre-tracked to just do, we have like a general science degree, but it involves no environmental science otherwise, so if they come into this course, this is where they'll get exposed to it. In Valpo, we're about 20 minutes from the lake, and people often forget that what we do in our community can impact what the water that goes into the lake, and this class helps those students open that dialogue. So the undergraduate liaisons, we lead our students into the field. We serve as points of contact between instructors and community partners. We're responsible for compiling the data that we collect in the field and taking it to the community partners. We facilitate discussions among our peers at the partner institutions, where if I was not the Save the Dunes liaison in the summer, so I needed to learn about what I needed to do to help best help my class. And we also generate new ideas for the classroom community projects, where now since we've been doing this project with the chemistry class, our biology teacher wants to have a service learning project as well, so I can help her figure out what the best way to fit that into her class. So, and the next person is Lisa Kratzer.
Thank you, and I'm from the Rochester Institute of Technology. In the summer of 2011, RIT partnered with 2 local schools as well as Waste Management's High Acres Nature Area, which is associated with the 3rd largest landfill in New York State, to focus on invasive species control within their created wetlands. Our primary project for the summer was a vegetation survey across the property, looking for the invasive species to create a baseline for assessing how their management control techniques are effective. We also followed a purple loosestrife monitoring protocol to establish plots to look for the purple loosestrife beetles and assess how they're progressing. We also worked on invasive species management techniques, so cattail pulling, cutting the seed heads to reduce spread, and outreach efforts included attending Waste Management's open houses for their 2 landfills in the area. We created posters and talked with community members about invasive species, what are they seeing in their backyards, and what can they do to help the Great Lakes and the area in general. Following that summer, I worked with this year's USLs, also at the site, to continue the efforts that were started last year. They have a baseline now, so now they're revisiting some of those same points because they're GPSed, and we have the data for them to see, is things getting better, and working to continue those efforts into future years. Next up is Hannah.
Hello. I'm involved in the cluster of Saginaw Valley State University, Delta College, and one of the main projects that I worked on had our community partner was the Calcallan River Watershed Property Owners Association, and they historically the Calcallan River has had lots of algal blooms and low dissolved oxygen, and they came to us wanting to figure out what's causing those in order to initiate restoration initiatives. And we had kind of a different model. We didn't have a specific GLSEN course. We implemented GLSEN projects into several different courses. And by doing this, we were able to kind of take a class, and they could learn and communicate the effects of land use on surface water quality by measuring water quality indicators that were specific to the course. Another project that we did, I wasn't directly involved in, but they did measurements of water parameters on beaches and waste cleanups. And the community partners for this project were the Bay County Parks, the Frankenless Township, and Bay City State Park and Adopt a Beach. And then another project that I wasn't directly involved with, but thought it was an important example to include was a floristic quality assessment of native plants. And this actually occurred on SVSU campus. And it was funded by the Saginaw Bay Watershed Initiative Network and SVSU campus facilities. And what they did is they used floristic quality assessment to determine the invasive and non-invasive plants on a wetland area that's located on SVSU campus. And this is an important example to include, I thought, because it shows that you can implement GLSEN projects into a course without actually having to facilitate moving students off of a campus.
All right, thanks. So we do plan to open up the floor to questions from people who are listening, but we also decided to plant some questions which we thought you might be thinking about as you were listening to the stewardship liaisons talk about their work. So one of the first questions, some of this is, may have already been answered, but the question is, okay, these courses got taught, students had an experience, community partners got served. What value did you really add as a person, as a stewardship liaison in your role to this work getting done? And would the project have happened without you? And if so, why? If not, why not?
Basically, my role, I feel that I really made the whole planning aspect of this very much simpler. Because I could talk directly to faculty members and directly to the community partners and organize meetings and send the emails that they might not have time to work around and send. And then I also can organize groups of students directly with the community members or directly with the professor if they are broken into small group projects. I can do things like make checklists for events and send out emails and organize meetings so that the professors and the community groups can focus on other things like teaching or what they normally do. And as for would it have been feasible without my assistance, I think maybe after it had already gotten started. But to initially set up this relationship, it takes a lot of back and forth. It takes a lot of what are you looking for, what are you looking for, and how can I put this together? And my community partner at the Western Reserve Land Conservancy, they specifically told me that it was really helpful to have a specific point person that can bring all of this together instead of talking to 4 professors trying to organize different projects for each class. They said it was really helpful to just have one person to pull it all together for them.
All right, then the question becomes, obviously, to do this job well, you need to have developed some pretty effective leadership skills if you're going to have credibility among your peers, and if necessary, have to rattle chains with your faculty and your community partner contacts. So, one of the questions that frequently comes up when we are recruiting and employing stewardship liaisons is, what kinds of leadership skills have you developed, and do you need to demonstrate as a student leader on campus? And how do those compare to the kind of leadership skills that you have to demonstrate in this new role? And how did you acquire those skills?
So like Glenn said, you gotta have pretty defined leadership skills to take on a position where you are in charge of your own job. So in my case, consistency was a big key factor in water sampling, because I needed to sample at the same time, so that wasn't a source of error or something when we were looking at our data. And my communication skills had to be pretty strong, because I had to be able to interact with the public, interact with the students, and interact with the faculty. So I guess, how do these skills compare with those needed by students in on-campus leadership roles? They don't necessarily need to directly interact with everyone that I just listed off. I mean, they need to be effective in their communication skills, but I acquired these skills. I feel like I strengthened these skills. For my entire life, I have lived on my family's beef and dairy operation, and we also own and operate a state-inspected meat processing and slaughter facility. So interacting with the general public was nothing new to me, especially with people older than myself. So I feel like I just strengthened these skills, which will help me in my future.
Thanks.
I'd just like to add a few things to what she said, and I agree completely with the communication skills are key in this position. And with that is versatility, and that's not just being a good communicator, but being a good communicator is knowing what kind of tone to use and who your audience is and how well to work with them. But I think one thing that came from this opportunity for me was I'm a passionate person, but it was developing passions in solving environmental problems and being an ecologist, learning what that meant, because when I started at Case, I was pre-med, and so this program has led me completely astray of those goals, which is a good thing. So while I think when we select these students, we need to see that there is potential for them to have a voice, and they have to have good communication skills, but it's allowing them and empowering them to develop that voice in this position.
So Elena referred a little bit to the kind of impact this program had on her career goals, and that's a good segue to the final question, which is, that we're planting anyway, which is, so thinking about where you might be 5 or 10 years from now, what role do you think this experience will have played for you, not only in your role as a future professional, but as a citizen and a stakeholder in the Great Lakes ecosystem?
I'm just going to come out and say it, that being a part of GLSEN has completely changed my life and my career path. Like Elena, I was on a different track altogether. I was going back to school, taking lab sciences for a dietetics degree, and stumbled into this chemistry course that I really didn't want to take, that I was, like I said before, a bit afraid of. And then I found myself looking forward to going to class, looking forward to going to lab, because I had been given a way to connect with the science and, again, connect with the community in a way that we're looking to get the other students to, when we lead them as liaisons. I had just moved to Indiana. I'd been there for about 2 months from the East Coast. I'd loved the ocean. I hadn't really experienced the lake. And this gave me a way to to connect with my community and connect with what was going on. And I've been a steward for 2 seasons, and after this year, I've been hired on to the National Park Service as a biological tech, as water quality, and it just continues on. And my goal is to keep working with the Great Lakes, to keep working in restoration. I don't want to move away. Don't tell my mom I said that, but and this is where I'd like to stay, and it's all because of getting involved with this program.
Hard to top that. But you may have some questions, not only about what some of the stewardship liaisons have said, but about how we might help you either affiliate with what we're doing or get a similar initiative started in your community. So we have 2 options. One is to just take questions from all of you, and others kind of break into smaller groups and talk about it. Would you like to ask some questions first? And if we have time, then we can break into groups. All right, so, all right. All right, any burning questions? We can break it. Yes, Paco.
Do you have like a lesson plan, or what kind of training do you give the liaisons?
That varies from site to site. I mean, generally, it's the responsibility of the community partners and the faculty to work together to provide orientation and training for the stewardship liaisons. And what we ask that they do is do that across institutions within each cluster. We're working on a Great Lakes-wide curriculum for this, for this leadership position, and this may sound like a lame excuse, but in the same budget compromise that eliminated all of the RC&D coordinators, the funding from the Corporation for National Service that supported this program was eliminated as well. So our longer-term plan was to be really working on that issue. We are currently on our way to transition to become affiliated with the 21st Century Conservation Service Corps, which is going to be launched in October. And as a part of that, we're going to be working real hard on kind of a Great Lakes-wide curriculum for this that is more generic. Yes?
Is there an age group of the students that you would consider working with in a community?
Well, at least in Northeast Ohio, the GLSEN was originally established to use undergraduate students in service learning projects, but we've had professors use this model with high school students. And I don't know if you're ISLS, I don't know what that is.
Well, there's somebody here from ISLS who could. Is there anybody here from the ISLS program?
No.
We can talk about it. We can tell them what that is.
But it is possible. It's not just undergraduates. And I think the younger, the better that we inspire these youth. But the thing that's special about undergraduates is that they're taking these very specialized, high-level courses that can provide very specific services and useful tools for the community partner. Does that make sense?
Okay, maybe I didn't ask my question correct. The community organization that you work with, for
Mhm.
example, if there's a middle school,
Mhm.
say a Montessori group that you're presently working with in the community, is it possible that your organization would work with that group as a partner?
Let me answer that. So the key to successful service learning is for the students in the class at the college level to be able to learn, for example, their science better because they're reaching out to the community. So what we are now looking into is the possibility of doing more linkages with colleges of education who are preparing science teachers, because that would be an appropriate service learning opportunity for them. If they're going to need to learn to work with the middle school populations, because that's what they're going to be doing professionally, then that would be the most appropriate linkage. But that doesn't mean that you couldn't call up the coordinator of your local cluster and ask for some help, because in some of the clusters they do outreach and community festivals and community education events and outreach events, and each of the clusters does have a designated institution of informal science education, like a science center or a science museum or aquarium or something like that they're affiliated with, and through which they often do these kinds of outreach activities. Erin, did you want to comment?
Well,
Erin coordinates the Calumet cluster, so.
at least in partners how to do the monitoring so that they'll go out and do it. So we've actually helped those individuals who usually teach the community monitoring. Our student stewardship liaisons have helped them run their workshops so they can increase the capacity of their workshops from maybe like 10 to 20 or 25, and then it becomes kind of dendritic, and then they end up going out as well. So we stepped beyond the classroom once the students kind of had those special skills to figure out how they could help increase their effectiveness somewhere else.
Yeah, and in Northeast Ohio, Elena was referring to the ISLS program. ISLS stands for Igniting Streams of Learning and Science, and that is something that we're supporting through the CLEAN program. And that's a congressional appropriation that Congressman LaTourette was able to acquire for us when there still were such things. And what the students are doing there is working with local high schools to help those high schools reduce the stormwater tax, basically, the fee that they're going to have to be paying now to the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District to manage the stormwater, basically, that's coming off primarily their flat roofs. And the college students, in collaboration with the high school students, are working on a curriculum to help the schools manage the water better, but also help the students go home and help their parents manage the water better, because what will happen through the sewer district is if you do have some kind of a demonstrable stormwater management device, like a rain barrel or a rain garden that you've installed on your house, you get a rebate on your sewer fee. So, I mean, there's even an economic kind of connection here. So the answer is yes, it can be done. It can't be done in all cases. It depends on the course. Yes.
I'm Sally Howard from Rochester, New York. I think this program was announced in Duluth.
Yes, that's correct. That was me. Yeah.
Session, and I just want to say how happy I am to hear how much has been accomplished and how many lives have been affected, not only the liaisons, but all the people who in your classes and all we do in the public who you've had the outreach with. So thank you so much.
And thank you. That's nice to hear, because that was a long 4 years ago, right? Right. I want to be conscious of the time. We've got about 5 minutes left, and I want to make sure I know we're running a little late. So
you actually have 25 minutes.
We do?
3:20 is when we'll stop.
Oh, okay.
I'm your timekeeper.
Oh, you're my time. Well, thank you. Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. That's why I raced through the introduction, because yeah. Well, I'm not going to go back and repeat the introduction. All right. So we have about 20 minutes then, more or less, 25 minutes. If you'd like to break into groups, and actually there's some faculty who are affiliated with this program, who can also kind of weigh in, like Aaron, and who can weigh in on how it works. If we probably have enough for 3 groups of 4 or 5, if you'd like to do that. And if the faculty, if you can spread yourselves out among those groups. Oh, I'm sorry. It's the light. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
One comment, one question. 10 years ago, Glenn and I did interns for Aquacore Eco Rangers, and this has grown so much better now to see the liaison aspect. And Jill and I are working on social emotional intelligence leadership, and you guys have exhibited all of that. And I just want to say thank you. You are showing your talents and assets and how your passion is showing. And the question is, somebody mentioned GIS, GPS technology. Who was your software provider?
We use ArcGIS.
Oh, Esri, yes.
Okay, thanks for pointing out the question. That was right in the spotlight, so I didn't see it. All right, well, if we could sort of kind of break up into maybe one group over here, and if the folks in the back could kind of consolidate over there, and one group over here, and the stewardship liaison is if you're going to distribute yourselves, if we have maybe 3 groups, there are 6 of you, 2 per group, we can.